on the move. Little dance step was good. Couple of bounces. Can take it himself and launch long. Inspirational.
Time ticking away. Stop it. For Silvani. What about that?
Mackay. 2 in a minute. And they are dancing now, the Blues.
Almost Mackay. Walsh, here he is. Straightens up and has delivered. Is there nothing this young man can't do?
Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Lockie, joined as always by my good mate Ian.
Mate, absolutely nailed that intro.
That was first take. It feels very good to be in control for once. And the reason for that is today we'll be putting our resident draft guru, Ian, under the microscope ahead of the AFL draft next week. But firstly, how have you been, mate?
Mate, I am good, and it's good to see you taking over the hosting duties in
Feels
this
right.
one. Although I wouldn't say that I'm a draft guru, and I do want to touch on this because I feel like everyone starting these sort of draft previews and whatnot, everyone's an expert. I'd like to say that I don't believe I'm an expert. I'd like to just say I'm a bit informed. Like I've followed basically this year, all of these players, been able to watch a lot of games, probably watched more under 18 stuff than actual just AFL games this season. So I know a bit about them, but the talent identification and being able to know what translates and being able to, identify that talent, maybe that's not where my strong suit is. That's why I'm not a recruiter, which is why I won't say I'm an expert. I'm not going to maybe find the hidden gem, but I am informed and hopefully I can give a little bit of information on all of these guys to let you know, guys that we may be selecting. But yeah, so I'm very good, Lockie, and I hope you're the same.
As humble and modest as ever, mate. And don't worry, I only hold you as a guru in my eyes. Where I'm coming from the base of, I couldn't tell you the first thing about these draftees that we're going to be looking at. So I'm very excited to pick your brain and see where you think this thing's going to go. In only a week, it's come around quickly. Should we get into it?
Yes, let's get straight into it.
I think the thing that I'm most excited about is that juicy first round selection that we have. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how the top 10 is shaping up and, who you think is most likely going to end up as a blue bagger, and then kind of who is it that you're hoping maybe slides through, or who's the guy you've got your eye on?
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, I've tried to put together like mock drafts, phantom drafts, whatever you want to call them, trying to see like what other teams above us kind of need to see how it will all float. And like, it's going to be interesting. There's definitely a few teams that it's going to be a weird one to see who they take. Like Essendon could go anywhere. Same for Gold Coast. Same. And then from that follow-on effect, that's where it can really change. Like West Coast and St Kilda's pick before us. You just don't know who these clubs are going to select if someone takes someone that they're maybe not expecting. But probably like to start off with, really the main player that I think most Carlton supporters have been eyeing off is, and let me get this up. If you're on YouTube, I'm getting some graphics up here.
Oh, here we go.
It is Oliver Hollins, who is 184 centimeters. He's a midfielder, plays a bit of wing as well from the Murray Bush Rangers. His real sort of draft range is probably around that sort of 10 to 20. And he's someone that I think a lot have spoken about. I think if you're looking at Carlton's needs, we're needing that pace. We're needing a winger, someone that can be that outside run. If you're looking at our midfield currently, we've probably got those inside players. It's now looking for that outside. And look, Oliver Hollins, he's the best two-way runner in the draft. He won the 2K time trial at the Combine. His endurance just allows him to cover the ground, whether he sort of pushes forward with the ball in hand to set up the play on the outside, or whether that's to drop back in defense to cover, which is really that profile of the elite wingman in the AFL these days. He's really high pressure. He loves to chase, loves to tackle, and he is really good on the outside when he plays that wing role, but at times he has shown that he can go in and win his own football and be that spark kind of. And I hate comparisons. I'm really just going to do it for more maybe Carlton players, not as he is this player, but there's an element of him in that kind of like Zach Fisher mold where it goes in for a burst and hopefully produces something on the outside. That's what we've seen him do. And Like if you're saying his downsides, he can lack a bit of physicality and some strength, and his inside contested ball isn't amazing. But compared maybe to a Lockie O'Brien, his contested ball winning is better, and he definitely has that physicality in wanting to do it. It's just probably at times his body isn't there. So I think as far as that outside midfielder is probably the best that should be available at our selection. I don't think anyone will take him higher than our draft pick.
Very interesting. Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense. It's what we need from a player like this, where you could argue that we're not in dire need for a contested kind of guy. So if that's where his deficiencies are, then it sounds like a winner. So you feel like there's a fair chance that he'll still be there for us.
Yeah, really, as far as like things I've tried to read up and see what the experts out there are predicting who will select who, I think that there's enough talent above that teams are probably either looking for key position players or real inside midfielders, or midfielders can do a bit of both. I just don't think their need is there for really anyone for a Hollands, and I think it's probably us or doggies that probably take him.
Love it. What else have you got?
So the next guy is someone that I feel like every mock draft I've seen has had us taking him, and I don't feel like it's the greatest need, but the guy to talk about is Jed Buslinger. He is 196 centimeters. He's a key defender from East Perth. Draft range around that sort of 5 to 15. Potentially quite linked with a West Coast to have a couple picks before us. And the big thing is, look, he's the best key defender in this draft. He reads the play incredibly well. He is that outstanding intercept defender. It's always composed as well when he's got the ball in hand. He makes pretty good decisions when he has it. He seems to know his limitations and know when to take the game on, know when to just take that simple option. He can lack a little bit in size, not height, but, bit of that muscle. And sometimes strength can be a bit of his weakness. But I think, once he just develops that, he's a young kid. These guys can take a bit of time to fill out. And I think that's with him. Once he's got that, he can play with a bit more strength and maybe not get as outbodied at times on these bigger, mature players he'll cop in the AFL. But look, his one-on-one work isn't bad by any stretch, and he's able to compete well, I think, with those mature players, but he's just really skinny. So that's probably one of his few drawbacks. And the other thing maybe is that he did miss the end of the year. He had some shoulder niggles throughout the year, and eventually they just said, look, you've shown enough. You're going to go high in the draft.
Yeah.
Go in for shoulder surgery. So that's maybe, I know we love our injured defenders in particular, but I don't think it should be anything to hopefully worry about. And as far as his defensive craft, as I said, he's definitely the best defender in this draft class. So if we're looking to bolster that, I know a lot of outsiders think that that's a big weakness for us. I think Jed Buslinger is that pick if he's available.
So you mentioned that a lot of mock drafts that you've seen have us taking him. Do you think that's just based on that difference in what people perceive our needs to be? Or just kind of, do you think other people think of it less as a needs basis and more just on the quality of the talent?
It's probably a little bit of both, but probably leaning a little bit more towards need. They sort of saw our injuries last season, and probably a fair few don't maybe see Lewis Young as being that nailed on other defender. And if you're looking at talent to pair up Wiedering with a Buslinger, I think that's a perfect partnership. Would work really well, and you're really shoring up that spine. So I do understand that, look, if he does fall to us, if, St Kilda don't want that other key defender, if West Coast don't take the local boy, then he should be available at our pick. And does Nick Austin maybe go a little bit more best talent rather than 100% need and just really shore up that position and maybe look ahead and think, look, we've got Marchbank that we're hoping's going to be that player, but he's had some injuries. McGovern, same kind of thing, and just just get him in. And if he becomes that superstar, you've always got, you can trade or you can find value elsewhere. So I think for that instance, it does make sense of it is still not 100% nailed down position, whether that be that third tall or even maybe that 100% second tall. And yeah, he's available there to be interesting to see what we do on draft night. Those two, him and Hollins, are the two. I think I'm leaning a bit more towards Hollins because I think we're just a little bit more desperate for that outside pace rather than just another key defender when depth-wise we do have a fair few. But I guess it's the question of, do you have, top 10 player on your list currently?
Totally. Yeah. No, I love that. Do you have some other guys that you think are first round options?
Look, definitely got a couple. I think as far as maybe a couple that may slide to us, if other teams maybe don't select them. The first one that excites me, you may have heard his name. It's Bailey Humphrey. He's 185 centimeters, mid forward from Gippsland Power. Range again, that sort of 5 to 10, but he could go earlier. To be honest, he's a bit of a bolter, as they like to say. He missed a bit of footy sort of at the start of the year, and then the second half was just unbelievable what he was able to do. And like you look at teams, and Essendon been linked, Gold Coast has been linked. It wouldn't surprise me if anyone above us has a selection take him, just because look, he's a ball winning midfielder first and foremost, so maybe he doesn't suit that need as much, but he's really powerful in the contest, and he sort of explodes away from stoppages, which maybe that's something we need. But then it's his forward craft that's that really exciting thing. It goes forwards, it kicks goals, kicked 21 goals in 11 NAB League games with 3 4-goal hauls. He's strong in the air, seems to always find the ball inside 50. He's one of those real X-factor players where whenever the ball goes in, he seems to be around it and getting chances at goals. He can be wasteful at times. I don't think he's always super composed inside 50. He can miss a fair few chances, which if anyone saw the last under-18 championship game, he did blaze away and miss a fair few, which has been a bit of a tale with him this year, but he just gets so many opportunities. And because he's of ability to not only be in the midfield and dominate, but then go forward and dominate, he can take marks. He just has that game-winning ability, and it's probably a component that we maybe don't have, that speed, explosiveness, can go forward and kick goals, that if you want just game-winning players that maybe can play a bit of that half-forward role, can play in the midfield, can just sit in the forward line. He can sort of do everything. And as far as talent, like I rate him higher than a Hollins. I rate him higher than a Bustlinger, even though he's a different position. If he slides to us, he's not maybe as much of a need as the other two, but talent-wise, I think he'd be so hard to pass up on.
So damn juicy. And he is one that has made his way into my my social media viewing. He's popped up with some highlights, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, there's something there. So that'd be exciting.
Yeah, and he definitely could slide to us. He's someone that at the moment, I would say 90% chance he's nowhere near us and our selection. But you just never know on draft night whether someone else slides and that changes all the picks. And probably the other one that is in this boat who I am so high on this guy. Like I'll try and get my rankings up so I can tell you exactly where he's ranked currently. Bear with me while I go through about 7 different spreadsheets, but he's currently my 4th ranked player. A lot of people have him more towards that 9 and 10. So I'm maybe a bit higher on him than others, but it is Mateus Philippou. He is from South Australia. He is 190 centimeter mid forward. So a little bit similar to that sort of Bailey Humphrey from Woodville, West Torrens. Draft range is that sort of 5 to 15. And look, there's a chance he could slide to us. And look, he's a big-bodied midfielder. As I said, 190 centimeters. He wins his footy on the inside. But what excites me is his ability to go forward, maybe like a Humphrey, where he can use his height, use that athleticism to have an impact on the scoreboard. He's just so incredibly clean, silky around the contest. Like some of his pickups off the ground under pressure have just been immaculate. They're so silky. It excites me. And like particularly there was one, I think it was against the Allies in the under-18 champs, where ball was like on the ground to be won in a contest, sprints in, picks it up, spins out of the contest, puts it on the boot, kicks a goal literally out of nothing. And I think that's why I'm excited about him, because he's got that spark that it's that match winning ability that he can make something completely out of nothing. And he's that, I hate to say it, but like comparisons are made to like that Bontempelli where he can play mid, go forward, and has a bit more height than a Bailey Humphrey, maybe a bit more in that Cripps mold. And like he has been a little bit, I wouldn't say inconsistent, but I think why he's maybe lower on other people's draft boards is that maybe he's had some games where he's been outstanding, and then he's had some other games where he's been fine. And so maybe that consistency to a degree hasn't been there. But like he's strong in the contest, is that he wins his own football, but the ability to play dual position, I think, is an exciting prospect. And I just see him as that match winner, and that's why I rate him higher. You look at some of the other midfielders that are just inside or just outside, maybe ranked higher above him. While they're good and they're going to be good footballers, I think this guy has that potential to win you a grand final because of that X factor about him. And that's why I think that if he does fall to us, maybe he's less of a need than a Bailey Humphrey. But do you pass up on a guy that could just win you a game of football on his own genuine ability?
It's a good sell. I think match winner and X factor are words that we've been throwing around since we started this podcast. There's like, where do we find those guys? And I'm curious to hear why you are not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but why are you against people comparing potential draftees to kind of current players?
It's just a really difficult thing because no player is like exactly like someone. And I feel like particularly in the media and fans, we tend to just go, oh, he's a clone of this player. This is exactly what we're getting, when the comparisons are more like there's a facet of his game that is similar to this. And I just think that comparisons can sometimes be pretty dangerous. And being fortunate to chat to a couple of people a bit more in the industry at times, they've just like some advice they've gotten from higher ups is just like, don't make comparisons. It just isn't the best thing to do. Like, I think that's why. But as far as like a midfielder that can burst, can kind of has that clean skills and can go forward, it's that Bontempelli mold. Whether he gets to those heights, who knows? But I guess for a bit of a slight comparison, that's kind of why he's got those plaudits. And hearing this guy speak, and from everything the media have kind of said in interviews and whatnot, he's apparently he's maybe rubbed teams a little bit the wrong way with his confidence. Some people maybe see it as a bit of arrogance, but like he got asked the question, like, are you the best player in the draft? Like, would you go pick one? And he's like, hell yeah. Like, I'm the best. And some people maybe don't like that, but having heard him speak, Pommy actually had an interview with him the other day. So check that out, Pommy, and I was on YouTube. He has that confidence, but it doesn't seem like just dumb arrogance. It seems like he just believes in himself and wants to get the best out of himself. And like, why would he not think that he could be the best player? He wants to live up to that potential. And that's kind of how I see it. It's kind of that real competitiveness, I guess, in him. Yeah,
totally. No, I love that. I think, you pick your times when to be modest and when to, talk yourself up. But that sounds like the context where you want someone to be saying that they're the best. So I don't hold that against him at all. That's an exciting one.
And it's probably been something that we've spoken about Carlton is we want guys that take things on, take the moment, want to be that guy that wins games. And if that's a quality you're after, I think Mateus definitely has that. Probably, look, the last player I have really in this mold, and again, it can depend if other players maybe slide, but I don't really have them there. This is definitely, if all the players are gone and maybe we do want to go down that key defender path, there's really only one other I would be selecting around this, and that is Lewis Hayes. He is 199 centimeters, is a key defender from Eastern Ranges. Little bit further down the pecking order. Draft range is a bit more that sort of 15 to 25. Could go a little bit higher depending on like positions and what teams kind of need. But he's definitely the second best like defender in this draft. He's pretty close to Buslinger, to be honest. I've always rated him pretty highly because I've tried to, knowing I was going to do this video and podcast throughout the year, I was keeping up with all the rankings from anyone that would post them all across the internet, basically, and trying to compare that to how I was rating people throughout the year. And I was higher on him throughout the year, and slowly he's moved his way up to where I had him. So that's kind of a bit of acknowledgement for me. It made me feel good about my rankings, but like he's a really good distributor, and probably out of all the defenders, I think he uses it better than a Buslinger. Like really good kick, really good decision maker. He's good at intercepting. He's good one-on-one. It's probably the defensive and the best of his game. I think that Buslinger has that. But the distribution is probably where I see Lewis Hayes being a bit better. He's really dominated whenever the ball's been back there. I don't have many like issues with him. Again, you'd probably say strength is something. But again, these young defenders, they don't have those bigger bodies yet. And that's really the only thing. But at 199 centimeters, you'd think that he'd be able to put that sort of weight on. But yeah, if we're after another defender and maybe Bustling is gone and we're desperate for that position, Lewis Hayes is really the obvious choice, but it might be that tiny bit of a reach of a pick.
Does it make you feel like the dream is over when you see blokes born in 2004 getting ready to be taken?
It hurts. It feels weird seeing anyone, honestly, born in the year 2000 onwards. That kind of scares me a little bit. But yeah, seeing that, I'm like, yeah, am I close to the grave, to be honest? It makes you feel really old real quick. And we're not even that old, which is just the scary part.
No. I think we may not play in the AFL, mate. I'm just putting that out there. I'm coming to terms with it now as we do this.
We'll get the comeback. We'll put the boots on this season and see if we can maybe get a mid-season call-up, I reckon.
Why not? Why not? Well, that was a very exciting crop there, mate. Look, fingers crossed you've nailed one of those so we can clip it and ship it and get some views on it. But they all sound exciting as well, so that's a good second part.
Look, worst case, I'll say another 20 players and hope that maybe just at least one of them is the guy who's been read out. But I think as far as everything that has been said in the media, they tend to be pretty spot on, I feel, for Carlton over the past few years. The names that get linked tends to be one of those. And all of those are pretty exciting prospects, and might be the last time that we have a pick this high in the draft, hopefully going forward.
Yeah, good point.
Let's get another star.
Unless we can do a Geelong and just absolutely
trade back
draft a team and get into the top 10. But
I'd like that.
Cool. Shall we move on to our next pick, which isn't a pick to scoff at, currently in the late 20s?
Yeah, look, I think it's pick 29, which isn't a bad one to have, a second rounder. Yeah, there's a lot of options, and the hardest thing from here is one, just trying to evaluate who may be still available at this pick. And honestly, from here onwards, if all these players are already selected, I apologize, but it's the hardest thing to try and rank these guys and know what's going on. Top 10's a little bit easier. This is a bit harder. So I've tried to really look at, I guess, need a little bit more for this, because I could rattle off 40 players that should be available around the 20 pick, but I've tried to go a bit more specific and just try to pick out a few guys that I've liked. So let's bring up this man here. He's got an unreal name, Max Brzezinski. He is 193 centimeters. He's basically a tall utility. He's played down back. He's played up forward from the Oakley Chargers. Range that I've got him in, that others have got him in, he's kind of anywhere from 20 to 40. So there is a chance that he doesn't make it to us. But look, why I like him is he's got a lot of upside. And I know this term gets thrown around a lot, but he's not someone that's necessarily ready to go right now, but he's got all those raw attributes that people love. And he's incredibly versatile, as I said. He spent most of his time down back. Later in the year, sort of swung forward, and I think he has played a bit more forward in his junior career, but he can be that attacking threat. He can take a big grab, which in the last under-18 championship game took a massive screamer out of nowhere. And those little moments that I think have shown the upside, where he can just use his athleticism to just, whether it's down back in his spoiling and intercepting, or whether it's down forward taking these massive marks, like he's got that leap. And as I said, like it's flashes. It's not been super consistent just yet. But maybe that's down to him not being settled, I guess, in one position, and maybe that's hurt his development. But I think he's got some super upside. And if I'm looking at needs as well, I feel like we maybe don't have a lot of that key forward depth, that sort of extra guy that can be there. And he's not the tallest, but maybe we need a swingman. We need someone that can be that tall third intercept defender, or whether he can be someone that can play forward if we have an injury. I don't mind having this swingman. And if you want to fall in love with this guy even more as well, I've got something for you, because God, this just tells you everything about him. In the 2K time trial at the Combine, I don't know if you've heard this story, but he's actually hurt his time, because he could have run that 2K and gone all the way to the end and impressed all the recruiters. He got right near the end, noticed Lewis Hayes that we've just spoken about, who had apparently collapsed multiple times throughout this 2K time trial. He'd gone too hard. He was on his hands and knees, and there was a video on Twitter of this. Lewis Hayes crawling to the finish line. Max goes, this man is in trouble. He stops, goes back, and helps him get over the line. Like, unreal. What a human being. He cared more about helping someone else out than his own bit of glory. And for me, that's better than getting an extra 30 seconds on your time trial.
Sounds like that's the perfect pairing. If we end up landing with Hayes with our first, then
get him on.
Pair the boys up. That's the love story we need.
But yeah, it's maybe a little bit of a different position that we maybe don't 100% need. But again, I'm just looking at this second round pick. Like, how many second round picks always come on? Is it better to get someone with a bit more upside and versatility in this kind of position? He was someone that definitely stood out for me.
For sure. And I mean, I think when we did our kind of list analysis episodes and kind of reflecting on them, I don't even really feel like there would be me personally, a disastrous type for us to be able to select. Like, it's not like you look at a position and you go, oh my God, we need to get rid of multiple players in this position, let alone take anyone. So I'm definitely not going to judge any kind of types that you suggest.
And I think it goes back to what we kind of mentioned earlier, where it's sometimes just going that talent, because worst case, he develops really, really good, becomes an absolute superstar, and whoever is taken over, you end up just getting value for them. It's never a bad thing if he, I doubt it would happen, but if he pushes out a Harry Mackay, like, that's not the worst thing ever, because it means you've got a superstar. And I don't expect him to do that, but it's always a positive thing if he turns into an absolute gun.
No, I like it, mate. I like it. What else you got?
So I got another guy here. His name is Kobe Burgill. He is a bit more in vein of what we've been talking about. He's 183 centimeters. He's more that midfielder forward, playing for the Gippsland Power. Again, that sort of 20 to 40 draft range. Speed and versatility is this man's biggest attributes. And we've spoken about speed being something we need on the outside. That's why I've chosen this guy. I feel like he'll be gone before our pick, because others do rate him a bit higher. But if he falls to us, I think we get him, because he's played primarily as a midfielder and impressed with his cleanliness around the stoppage and his burst of speed forward. But he has spent time down forward, particularly for Vic Country, where he's shown that he can go forward. He can be a bit more of that creative half forward that sets up teammates, and he does finish chances, but he's not that sort of small goal kicking forward. He's a bit more of that high half forward that can push up in the ground. And look, sometimes they even experimented him down back, and he held his own and was able to use his speed and skills to rebound. So it's interesting that he can kind of play everywhere. And I think he's probably, if he goes anywhere else, he's probably more suited to just a midfield role where he can pinch hit half forward. But if we get him, it's almost the reverse for me, where he's that half forward that can pinch hit in the midfield, just because of the other talent we've got around there. And he's just got a great ability to hit the ball with speed and hit the contest with speed and get that play moving, which is, I just think, an attribute that we're currently lacking. He does, however, which maybe might hurt him a little bit, he does need to work on his disposal a bit under pressure. Sometimes he can kind of rush it a little bit. It's not to say that his skills aren't good, because he can seem to hit targets, but there's just sometimes that kind of gets it, and when he's got that speed behind him, he sort of just whacks it on the boot and hopes for the best. But that's probably something that with a bit of composure, a little bit more time, he can hopefully develop. I wouldn't say he's a poor kick by any stretch.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you'd hope that that's the kind of thing that can develop with some years in the system. And we already have a few players that do that, if we're honest. So
Yeah, exactly.
he wouldn't be alone.
But yeah, I found this pick a really hard one to look at because there is still talent there, but trying to find the exact need. I'm struggling to nail anyone else really apart from those two that were perfect. But I'll mention a couple of others. One is Charlie Clark. He is 182 centimeters. He's a bit more of that general forward, like small forward, from Sandringham Dragons, that 20 to 40 range. Another one that I feel like may go before our selection. But he's a bit more of a small forward, so maybe doesn't fit our needs as we keep drafting these players. But again, he's got that speed and a bit of an ability to pinch hit in the midfield. He definitely spent a bit more time in the second half of this season in the midfield, and his pace and spread away from the contest was really good, which is why I think we can really utilize him maybe a bit more, even though he's got that really good forward craft and he seems to always know where the goals are, which again is maybe another thing we're always looking at, a guy that just gets the ball and immediately just wants to be that match winner and go for goals, which I think he does have. But I like the option of, because he has got that speed, because he can play midfield, maybe a bit more of that high half forward, can play him anywhere. Can he be that small? Can he be that high half forward? He's got that versatility to do it. And like he's really tenacious. Like he loves to fight, he loves to chase, loves to tackle, loves to be in the contest as well, which is why some maybe see him being that pinch hit midfielder. He really just works hard to want to win the football. It can look a little bit crazy at times when he's just hounding around packs, but it is exciting. And yeah, he's someone that probably is a bit more suited to, as I said, that small forward role. But there's a talent there that can do a bit of everything. So it wouldn't surprise me if you just take a flyer on this guy, because is our small forwards are they that perfect that you can't improve on them? I'm not 100% sold just yet.
Totally. And that's why I made that point before. Like, if you looked at the depth charts, then probably the small forward may be the one that stands out, where you go, okay, this is the spot where it wouldn't make sense. But you're right. They're all young guys still. Always is a little bit older, but inexperienced. So in no way are they 100% locked in. So I like your thinking. I'm gonna try and read your mind here, because I'm thinking back to our depth charts, and I'm like, so what are some positions that we talked about? We haven't talked about any ruckman yet. Do you have a ruckman at all for us? And your face tells me that we don't.
Oh, no, it's actually the opposite. My next person I was going to bring up was a ruckman here, mate. So I can't believe that you've segued that perfectly. It is Harry Barnett, because he is actually scheduled to go around, honestly, these kind of picks. The 20 to 40 range, as I mentioned, West Coast have been someone that apparently may take him. Is 202 centimeters, 97 kilos, from West Adelaide. Ooh. And look, he is the best ruckman in this draft class. However, not to be too harsh on Big Harry, but in fairness, the competition this year in ruckman isn't great. There's not a lot of other ruckmen in the draft pool. There's probably about one or two that may go quite late. So while there is no one else, he has been super impressive. Issue is, and we've said this, do we need another developing ruckman? Like, he isn't someone that's really going to come in straight away and be that dominant guy. With Murkov there, with De Koning, is it the perfect position? I feel like we both want someone a bit older, but at his height, and a bit of strength as well that he's got at the moment, he can really dominate in the ruck. He's shown that he's got some strong marking ability, particularly, I guess, floating around the ground, winning some contested marks. Doesn't really hit the scoreboard a lot. He isn't really that ruckman that goes forward. He's definitely a bit more that traditional ruckman in a sense. Not that he's just like a tap. He can do stuff around the ground. Just doesn't seem to go forward. But yeah, definitely the best ruckman in this draft class and should go around this pick. It'd be interesting to see whether we actually chuck another young ruckman onto this list.
Well, I feel like that raises what in my head feels like an interesting question. I mean, you would have seen a lot of young ruckmen playing this year. So why then is the best ruckman in the crop looking at going around that 30th pick? Why is there this, why is there no one higher?
No, it's an interesting point, and I think that it probably just comes down to like the talent just wasn't there. Like there's like a Jackson Broadbent that might go quite late, and like the draft itself just isn't very ruck heavy. Like there's not a lot of ruckmen, there's not a lot of key forwards, very intercept defender heavy. Like there's probably one guy that I haven't necessarily got like the full profile in front of me. Because I just don't think it's a need necessarily, but I'm really high on an Isaac Keeler that could be available around this selection. He's a bit more of like your forward ruck, super athletic, really clean below his knees, which is like the really exciting thing for me. I was at one of the under-18 championship games, and I was hearing a couple of like player managers and things talk amongst themselves, and heard one of them really mention Isaac Keeler, being like, mate, he's so impressive. Like he's the one that really surprised him. So this guy could be something special who's meant to go around this mark, but like with the coning, maybe it doesn't fit that list of need with an Isaac Keeler, even though I really like his attributes at being someone that can do a bit of both compared to a Barnett that's just your straight ruckman. But yeah, I just think the quality of rucks hasn't been amazing. It just comes down to talent. And I guess those that are a bit smarter than me at this and being able to recognize this guy compared to ruckman from the year before and the year before that, obviously there's just, he hasn't, I guess, dominated as much as you're maybe hoping, knowing that the talent in the draft pool isn't as high.
Fair enough. Very, very good explanation. All right. Next player. I'm going to try and see it again. I do not have this list in front of me, listeners, if you're cynical of my mind reading. Outside mid.
I hate this. You're actually too good. I hate this. I've got my.
I know you.
Literally the next one was like, look at this. He's a wing forward. It is Jackson Binns, 182 centimeters from Dandenong Stingrays. This guy really excited me, particularly late in the year. He's definitely below Hollands as like one of the next best wingers, but he's probably, as far as like hard running, two-way running midfielders, he's probably the next best from Hollands, to be honest. He has spent a lot of time forward as well, which has shown a bit of versatility of being able to kind of be that half forward, be that winger, do a bit of both, which probably complements something that we're looking for. He's got that speed and just that run that I think we lack. Downside, and it's a big downside, is his kicking. It's his kicking. There's a tendency to turn the ball over, or unfortunately, like he knows what he wants to do, and the player will be there in the lead, and he'll kick it near the player, but he doesn't nail the player. It'll either be to his feet or just a bit to the side. And I know we're a bit wayward in our kicking. We've got some players that we want to shore up the ball use. At the moment, Jackson Binns is a little bit wayward, is a little bit all over the place with his disposal, but he just has no issues finding the ball. Like when he's in the forward line, when he's on the wing, it just seems to be around it. He's got that explosiveness, that speed that he looks exciting, and he can impact games with that outside run. Just lacks that bit of polish, which is why he's going in that second round. That's why he's not going to be that first round pick. He could even honestly float a lot further than like our draft pick. I tend to have him rated 5 to 10 draft picks higher than I've seen some others rate him at the moment. Just because I love his speed, and I feel like he's got some good attributes that can be match winning ability, which is why I rate some guys higher. But yeah, it's just that downside of his kicking that it hurts you.
Feels like there's a Binns pun in there too. Nothing's coming to mind, but there's probably something there.
He needs to get some Binns out there and start kicking the footies into him, I tell you, because he needs to line something up. If that's your pun there. But yeah, that's pretty much him. And there's kind of a similar-ish player. So if you want more outside, this is really another guy that he's probably rated, honestly, a bit further back. Like I've got Binns in just my rankings at 38. So a little bit past our 29 pick, and the next guy I've got at the next pick after that at 39, and it is, let me get this graphic up, almost forgot that for the viewers, it is Blake Drury, 176 centimeters, so it's a little bit short, but he's that mid forward from the Oakley Chargers, and that is an absolute footy factory at the moment. They're going to have a lot of kids drafted in this year of 2022, and look, he's a He's a really solid high half forward that loves to push up and influence in the contest and get the ball moving forward. Real high work rate, and honestly tends, like similarly to a Binns, he always seems to find the football and be around it. He has been given some good chances in the midfield where, look, at times, honestly, and I'm not trying to just talk all these guys up, which I just will in fairness, but he has been close to best on, even for a Vic Metro team that's had a Will Ashcroft in the midfield at times, like particularly his game against the Allies. If you want to see the best of Blake Drury, go and watch that. It's on the AFL website. Just his ability to be involved in all the main scoring chains. He was the guy getting on the end of a lot of it. You know, Ashcroft and Mackenzie were all around it, and he was that third one, adding that bit of speed, adding that bit of stuff on the outside. It was really exciting, and I was immediately like, hang on, who is this guy, and where's he come from? And then, unfortunately, he probably just didn't live up to that at all times. And again, maybe like a Binns, he can sometimes struggle with his ball use. At times, he can sort of blaze away, whether that's in front of goal, whether that's passing. He lacks a bit of composure, which is again why he falls down here, and also falls down because of his height. Sometimes those smaller guys maybe doesn't translate as well to an AFL, even though he's got some of those outside skills. And then also, I guess in his position, if you're looking at the context of the draft, like he's not that top elite mid that's got all of the perfect attributes. He's not that mid-sized, smaller forward that's going to be that tackle pressure, kick goals out of everything. He's not that, but I think he's got upside because he seemed to be like here's a comparison, a David Cunningham, where every time he was involved, it was a great scoring play or he was creating something. And I feel like he can be a nice role player for a team and be that kind of connector that can explode away and create and score goals, but he does need to tidy up his skills. And I do worry a little bit about that height, but for a player at that kind of pick, probably reach, but at least he kind of fits that mold, I suppose. Interesting.
And feel free to keep the player comparisons coming, because for an outsider like me, whenever you slip one in there, I'm like, oh, yes, okay, sure. I'm visualizing it now. So that's a good one.
Yeah, it's just interesting because he's had those moments where you look for those flashes and you're like, oh, shit, like that was one of the best things I saw in this game. But then the rest of the game, maybe like a player like a Cunningham or others, you're like,
that's great.
It's not that he's disappeared, but he just hasn't shown it for that whole game. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for our second round pick. It's as I said, it's a really tough one, and I'll probably missed whoever we end up drafting because they're just who knows who's going to be available there. But those are the guys that I think, as far as probably need, if we're looking for that outside run, I guess mainly, or someone that can be in that forward line, those are the guys that are spotted up for us.
Love it. And I'll band with the listeners here. We won't hold it against you if, the players that we take aren't mentioned in this show. We understand that there's so many variables that go into this. So, don't beat yourself up when, you don't nail any of these. It's fine.
100%.
So 49 is the number that we've gotten right now, which may end up, shifting around, but
who knows where it's going to go.
Who have you got your eye on?
Yeah, this is where it becomes, the rest of the draft becomes maybe a bit more fun for me, because these later picks, we are big talkers on this, where take a flyer on someone. Like, honestly, let's be serious. Like, I'm going to talk all these players up and make them sound like the second coming of Wayne Carey or whoever, Gary Ablett. But like, there's obviously reasons they're going at this level, and the amount of times a pick, 49, becomes a superstar or even stays on a list for 4 years, probably not super high. I feel like we need to do a full thesis on this and find out the probability of it. But there's still a chance that some of these guys can become some really solid role players for it, and maybe even better. So let's go through a couple and try to find a bit of value at this pick. So the first guy I want to talk about, let me find his little card here. It is James Van Ez.
Great name.
He's 197 centimeters. He's a key defender from the GWV Rebels. He's really athletic, super, super athletic. Another one of these intercept defenders. So if we haven't nailed this position and we still want a key defender. I feel like as a late pick, he is someone that has attributes that can be upside. And you know, he came. These are the things to get excited about for a guy that could be pick 49 in the combine. First in the vertical jump, first in the running vertical jump, fourth in the 20-meter sprint. So he's another one of these guys that, like, raw traits, you're looking and going, there's something here if you can get it all together. And he's someone that uses strength quite a bit as a weapon, really, to nullify his opponents. He doesn't tend to lose a lot of one-on-ones. He can get a little bit beaten on the ground, which is a bit of his issue. And look, his distribution isn't like the best user of the ball. Maybe like Lewis Young-esque in, like, he's not perfect, but he's fine. It's not. That's why he's not going in the first round draft. In the draft, he's not that beautiful user, but he's okay. And like, he does maybe need to create a bit more separation at times from his opponent to be able to get more opportunities to intercept. Because he's got those attributes, but if it sometimes you don't see it translate. Like, I was surprised that he was fourth in the 20-meter sprint. I didn't necessarily look at him and go, man, this guy's explosive. But when he's in the air, like one-on-one and whatnot, like, he looks good. He reads it really well, uses his body smartly. And the tough part of him is there's so many good key defenders and intercept defenders in this draft that, like, he's just going to fall down, and he's maybe not better than all of them. But like, if we want to as I said, if we want to bolster our defensive stocks, and we don't want to use that early pick, it's not a bad option, honestly, late. I think he's got enough there that, as I said, there's some upside to him. He's not just, he'll be fine at what he is now. You're hoping that there's room to improve.
Took the words right out of my mouth, mate. That's exactly what I'm excited for with these picks. We want to see where that rogue upside could be. So that's a good one.
Yeah. Next one is a little bit of a different player, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about him, but he's one of those weird players that, for whatever reason, I've liked when I've watched him play, and he's around this range, so I'm going to talk about him. It's Nick Sadler. He is 180 centimeters. He's a midfielder from Sturt in South Australia. Let me get my notes up on him because I'm all over the place. But look, as I said, he's a player that has stood out for me this year. He's super clean, honestly, with his hands, and uses the ball really, really well in open play. He has a bit of speed, and at times sort of explodes through. I know there was one passage in his game against, I think it was Vic Metro, down at GMHBA Stadium, where there was just balls out there on the wing, and all of a sudden he just sprints through, collects it, runs through them all, uses it well, hits a target, creates a shot on goal. And for me, when I'm watching those games, like, I'm looking for the moments of, show me that you're above the others around you. Like, you can get all these possessions, but show me something that others can't do. And for me, that speed and, like, ball use, that's what he is. He's so good at that. And, like, his downfall is just his size at 180 centimeters, and isn't that super inside contested player, which, again, maybe is something that doesn't translate well to AFL, and he may struggle to be that midfielder, which is why I think he could maybe be a bit more of a half forward and use that skill set to be that guy that sets it up, and maybe pinch hit rather than just be that midfielder. Because at times, like, he has impacted the scoreboard, which is kind of why I like him as that half forward. Because, like, when you've looked at maybe not positional needs, but things that we need, it's like speed and ball use. And he sort of ticks those boxes, which is why I like him.
I really like that. And I mean, for me, you may have a different view on this. I'm not expecting a guy that we take into this spot to have the impact next year, at least. So, you know, with that picking for position piece as well, you never know who's going to, you know, what's going to change a year or two from now. So I think that's a good one.
Awesome. So next one is, it's got a great name, this one. It is Jason Gilby. He's 191 centimeters, bit of a big boy. He plays sort of rebound, intercept defender, but also wing. He's sort of this weird utility, can kind of play anywhere from the Bendigo Pioneers. Again, that kind of range is around that sort of 40 plus. He sort of fluctuated a little bit. But yeah, at 190 centimeters, he just offers a lot of versatility. It's another one of these real hard endurance runners. He actually tied the 2K time trial. So he's got something about him, and he really works hard again to just cover that ground. As I said, can play as that tall winger that seems to be that in vogue position. He's got that long penetrating kick, which is quite exciting as well. Really breaks the play open. Although, look, to be honest, and again, it's why he's rated down. It's not always as efficient. Sometimes he does just boot it out there, but like as that sort of rebound defender that can kind of intercept as well at his height. Like you never know if he's going to sort of keep growing. Who knows? But yeah, he's an interesting one because he's got that hard running that I think we're kind of looking for, and can play that multitude of positions, which is exciting. And like, again, he's not that inside player that's super strong and contested. He's that outside player. But yeah, the versatility is what kind of excites me at one of these later picks.
Great. I got nothing to add to Jace. Great name. Happy lock.
Perfect. And now this is someone I'm very interested to talk about for a couple things that you'll hear when I mention them. His name is Luke Teal, 189 centimeters. He is a general defender, and I know what you're thinking. We don't need more defenders. What are you talking about? I don't need a small-ish, not 100% tall defender.
What are you doing?
But he's from the Oakley Chargers, so that maybe excites you a little bit more. But let me talk about him, and I'll explain it here, because this guy, if you're looking for his attributes, elite kicking and distribution is Luke Teal to a T.
Say less.
Okay, I'll just stop talking. That's the podcast. We'll wrap it up there.
Me.
No, but this guy, you talk about your rebounding defenders and your pacey guys. He's not really that, even though he's got the kicking. He's a bit more defensive than a lot of others in the draft, which is probably why he falls down, because clubs are like, if you're playing in defense, I want you to be a lockdown, interceptor, or pacey. It's not super pacey. But, as I said, with the distribution, he's so smart with his skills. He's got them, and his decision-making is great, which is then, I guess, effective when rebounding. And look, sometimes he can struggle a little bit with some bigger bodies because he is 189 centimeters.
Sure.
And he's missed the start of the season. He only played 5 games for Oakley and 1 for Vic Metro. So he maybe hasn't had that exposure. But this is the key point. This is what I'll get to. I'll get to it now.
Okay.
If we want a Plowman replacement, we want someone that can actually lock down as a mid-size defender that can go on those smalls and actually do it. This is that guy. Like, he prefers to defend one-on-one rather than just be the pacey Sard defender. But compared to Plowman, what's Plowman's biggest thing that he's always said about him? He's always prone to one mistake that just ruins the game. That's not this guy.
Never heard anyone say that.
like Luke Teal uses the ball well and won't turn the ball over, which is why everyone hates Plowman. So it's an interesting one, maybe not exactly a need, but as far as lockdown, mid-sized, small defenders, he's like the only one that I've seen in this draft class. So I think if you want that Plowman replacement so people can stop yelling at Plow, lock him in.
And we do not fall into that boat. We're the biggest Plowman lovers ever. But that was a good sell. And that's probably the first player where I'm like, I've felt a real connection. Luke feels like one of us already. So maybe we're manifesting it.
We like it. He's got a nice name as well. So that always helps.
Good name. Simple.
I'll try and breeze through the next two because they're a little bit similar. Cool. So we will go this man here, Jaden Mager, I believe is how you pronounce that one. 185 centimeters, mid forward from South Adelaide. So another one in this vein, which is why I've selected him and the next guy. This is a goal kicking forward who can pinch hit in the midfield. He's solid overhead with his leap and always seems to know where the goals are. He doesn't necessarily accumulate in the midfield, which is why he'd be going so late. But he's got the power really to honestly win the ball in the contest, and that, again, speed and burst. He's that kind of player, and he kind of seems to have a bit of, I know X Factor gets thrown around, But when he has the ball in the forward line, seems to make something happen. Like he always seems to kick a goal. And it seems weird to say he's a mid forward that struggles with outside polish. Like he isn't, even though he's got the sort of power and burst, he isn't really that like, I don't know. It's so hard to say he's got that explosiveness without saying he has pace. Like, but he doesn't. Like he struggles a little bit with his disposal by foot on the outside and being that distributor that way. But he's kind of that like high impact. I've got the ball and I'll try and make something happen. It's I guess being that high half forward at times, he's struggled a little bit to find the ball on the outside and win that uncontested ball, maybe with his positioning. But he likes that contest and he can kick goals. So I feel like there could be something there, particularly with his marking, to be that sort of mid-sized forward that can win a bit of his own pill.
I like it. I'm not going to be speaking ill of anybody here because when we take them, I want all positivity. So it's good.
Perfect. And last guy at this pick I have is Noah Long. He is a little bit smaller, 177 centimeters, mid forward from Bendigo Pioneers. And as I said, he's another player like a few on this list that lack a bit in size, but it's weird. He still sees his best attributes as that inside midfielder, similar to Jaden, where outside maybe not always there, but for his size, he just loves to go in and win that contested ball. And for that reason, he might not make it in AFL because he's a bit smaller as that midfielder. But it's why maybe he works a bit more in that forward line. He's got that real ability to win the ground balls and sort of speed away from the stoppages, which makes me think he's more suited to that sort of crumbing small forward that can pinch hit in the midfield. But yeah, when he's played forward, he's been able to kick goals. And he, as I said, does well as a crummer, even creates some opportunities for his teammates. It's just, again, ball use isn't perfect, a little bit small. Those are the downsides of a lot of these guys in this list, which is why they're 49.
Yeah,
but there's some upside in being able to hit the scoreboard and win some pill, really, with a guy like this.
We'll never say no to the scoreboard ticking over.
Which is what I've sort of, I guess, manifested in that pick 49 scope.
Love it. Boy, oh boy. So that's got pick 49 covered?
Yeah, that's pick 49 covered, which means we've got one more.
Yeah, that's the thing. So are you confident that we will be using a pick this late?
Could not tell you, to be honest. There's a big chance that we do. Big chance that we do.
One.
But I could see us easily just say, get our 3 and get out of there. But it feels weird that we haven't taken a lot of draft picks recently. And maybe with a couple of the players that could be available at this selection, wouldn't surprise me if we take a punt at a few. So I'm going to get started straight into one of them. Because the first two I'll talk about, good chance that we take them with pick 49 instead. These guys could fluctuate. They may not actually make it to this pick, which let me find out exactly what this pick is. It's 66, which is the issue, because I've got the next two guys rated at 58 and 60. So might not be there, maybe worthwhile going them a bit earlier. But for the ease of things, I've got them at this position. And the first guy, you may recognize the name, but I can assure you it's a different guy. And that is Tom Scully, because this guy, he's 203 centimeters. He's 203 centimeters. And he's a key forward from West Adelaide. So a little bit different to the Tom Scully that you have grown to know. Weirdly, the discussion of these two next players is so odd because this guy earlier in the year was literally top 10 rated in the draft, was going top 10. He has all the raw elements sort of needed to become that gun key forward. He's got the height. He's mobile. He shows great in the air. Like he can just leap. He's got the big arms to clunk him. Issue is, and another positive, really accurate in front of goal as well. He's got a good set shot routine. Doesn't miss many. He's booted 17 goals actually in the first 7 games of the season, which is why everyone was like, holy shit, this guy's going to be unreal. However, hasn't really developed amazingly from what was expected throughout the year. He's a soccer convert, and he played a bit more ruck last year, so he's still kind of learning things a little bit. Struggled last year physicality in the ruck, which is why he moved into the forward line. And he's He's dominated when playing against those smaller bodies in the under 18s, but struggled a bit more against mature bodies and those probably with a bit more footy IQ against him. Like when he's come up against the better key defenders, he has struggled a little bit. But again, there's upside just because, he's a bit skinny. He needs to put on some weight because let me get this guy's weight up here. As I said, he's 203 centimeters. He's only 89 kilos. So he needs to put on some size because he gets thrown around a little bit there and he needs to get his footy smarts a little bit up there.
Yeah.
Because without that physicality, he needs to find out how to move his body to outmark his opponents. And sometimes he can struggle to hold them. He seems to fumble a little bit because he struggles with that physicality. But if he can work on his footy smarts, put on some size, again, those raw attributes are there. And you've seen the ability of him kicking 17 goals in 7 games. There's something there. But there's a lot that's not there, which is why he could go so late. But you just never know what this kind of guy could do.
Totally. That's why we're talking picks in the 60s. But that sounds like the kind of guy that you could get pretty excited about. So it's a good one.
And I think team need, like we did the depth chart earlier in this sort of off season. It's Charlie, Harry, no one. Like it's TDK, kind of. It's Jack Silvani. That is incredibly bare. I think we've both agreed on saying that it'd be nice for us to have another key forward there, maybe to develop another one. I think later in this draft is where you could do it with him. Or the next guy that I've got here, whose name is Harry Lemmy. He's another
Lemmy.
It's an interesting one.
I like it.
He's 202 centimeters. He's a key forward from West Adelaide. So they're brewing these guys from everywhere. And another guy, as I said, highly rated in the start of the year, fell away throughout the season. Had an incredible 2021, which saw him basically be one of the top draft picks earlier in the season. Really struggled to put it together, struggled for consistency, had some injuries, he's battled some illness, and maybe that has been the reason he hasn't had that strong footing. His strengths really are his leading patterns and his football smart. So maybe the inverse of a Scully. The raw attributes aren't maybe as good, but he tends to play a little bit better. It's been a weird one watching him play. At times he shows something, but he just looks like he doesn't have the confidence. I don't know what it is. I've heard some little murmurs around saying his competitiveness hasn't been there, and that's been a factor in why he just hasn't been as good this season. But he's got some sort of raw traits there, which could be a decent pickup. Like worst case, this guy, he's on the list for 2 years, doesn't do anything, but there's a chance that he becomes a handy key forward for you if you need him.
Yeah, totally. That's a good one too. I can buy into that.
Easy. So we'll change tact a little bit away from that and go some other guys here that maybe have a bit of upside. This man's name is Jake Walker, 184 centimeters, midfielder from Glenelg. It's an interesting one. Real free-flowing midfielder. Loves to get the ball moving and uses sort of power to burst through. He's shown he can be super clean by hands. He isn't one that gets talked about a lot. Missed some footy through injury and only played sort of the 10 games. But when he's played, he's shown, I guess, some really good signs. Definitely has a lot of development to go. He's not someone that is ready to go like straight away. And because of that lack of exposure is something probably why he's going a little bit later. But there's been times, particularly for sort of South Australian things, where you're like, oh, there's something with this guy, kind of like the Sadler that I spoke about. There's just those little moments that you see little glimpses of him bursting through and just using his strength and power to move. And you're going, God, if he could do that for the whole game, there's a player here, which is why I sort of see the upside of that burst player that I think, again, whether it's midfield, high, half forward, that we're probably lacking a little bit in.
Yep. Fantastic. That's a good one.
Easy. And look, I've got a couple others, but this guy is probably another one of my hidden gems. And if this guy becomes a superstar, I'll call it. If he doesn't ever play a game of football, you never heard it from me.
That's what his energy is.
It's Archie Lovelock, which you got to love this. I know we've talked about names a little bit. One of the greatest names you'll ever hear. And I want this guy playing for Carlton. 178 centimeters. He's a forward mid from Glenelg. And look, this guy, he lacks size, clearly, 178 centimeters, makes the most of his touches, particularly in the forward line. He honestly really grabbed my attention in the under-18 championship games. There was one game in particular, it might have been against the Allies, where, mate, every time this guy got the ball, he was going to kick goal of the year. He was going to do something. It was like he was in absolute flow state. Things were just happening for him. And I was like, who is this guy? He's exciting. And look, he ended up winning the Alan Stewart Medal, which is the best on in the under-18 Sandful Grand Final. Glenelg won. He won the best on medal. And he's a real hard worker. He loves to chase and tackle. Seems to be pretty clean, honestly, with ball in hand as well. For his size, he seems to win and find a lot of it wherever he is. But that's the issue. He's smaller. So what he does best as a midfielder, he probably can't do that in the AFL.
Yeah.
But he's still looked really good, and I've loved his forward work. So I don't think that's too much of an issue. Like his tenacity and goal sense, I think you can carve out a nicer role for him as that, whether it's small forward, whether it's forward mid. Like, this guy's my hidden gem. Like, I don't see a lot of drawbacks. I don't know why a lot of other people haven't really spoken about him, but maybe that's it. Maybe my talent ID is garbage.
Time will tell.
I just like his hard work and his spark. I feel like there's something there. There's a bit of a skill set that he could maybe translate, but maybe it's just those physical attributes that people are going, this is good in under 18s, and that's fine, but you just can't do that in the AFL. And again, that's where I'm saying my drawback is, and I'm very excited to, as I'm starting to try to cover a bit more of draft content, revisit these in a couple of years and be like, oh my goodness, I've got them wrong, or I've found some areas that I'm maybe finding them. But again, what are you getting at this draft pick? Find someone that can play some good footy and win a best on in a grand final. That's not bad.
I hope the listeners did write down that timestamp and are ready to look back on this when Brownlow
watch him not get drafted.
Archie Lovelock. Yeah. He's not even a real player. This is a test for me. You've just made up his name.
But like, honestly, like some of the guys I'm probably going to name now, there's a chance they go rookie draft or undrafted. Yep. So this may be a position where we don't take this guy now, but we take him in one of the other drafts. And another one of those is Harry Cole. Let me find his name tag here. Oh, I don't have it, but I'll put that in post. That is a future Ian
we do
thing
have
to
it.
do. Forgot to make it. But Harry Cole, he is 187 centimeters. He's a general forward from Claremont, so a WA boy, and he's that real medium-sized forward. And look, he didn't feature a lot this year, so there's still a lot unknown, which I think is why he's really not spoken about a lot. But he's someone that has that attribute we love. He has the eyes for goal and could develop into a nice little crafty forward. He's really good at finding space inside 50. I swear, a few games I saw for him representing WA, all of a sudden you're like, there he is. And he's got the ball in hand. And you're like, how's this guy just keep finding it inside 50? So I think that's a really good thing for him. Tends to be a decent set shot, but still pretty raw. And there were bright spots. Struggle to probably put that consistency together. Downside really is he is that mid-sized goal kicker, but he isn't that pacey small that tackles and crumbs. He isn't that guy that's going to push higher up and influence in the midfield. He's just that. He's a middle-sized, leading, goal-kicking forward. But he hasn't put on like 50, 60 goals. So people just go, he could be okay, he might not. And I just think that if we want to have a flyer at that goal-kicking forward, because if you look at us, we've got Motlop as that X factor. Durden's the pressure. Always, we're probably not all sold on. We think someone else is going to take that mantle. Jack Martin's been okay, but injury prone and hasn't shown the best. That mid-sized forward is up for grabs.
Yep.
Rookie pick 60, whatever. Not a bad shout.
Love it. Book it in.
And then my last guy that I'll speak about in these late picks, he could genuinely go undrafted, this guy, but
no, that's what we want.
Is Darcy Edmonds, and this guy is 183 centimeters. He's just a winger. And this is why he's from Northern Knights. He's going to be an interesting one. Literally late round flyer, even rookie draft, may not get there. But if you want a winger that is just a winger. He's going to run all day. He's going to stay wide.
He's a straight up winger.
He's good by foot. That's him. Like, you want your comparison, it's Lockie O'Brien. He's not going to go in and get your contested ball. He's very skinny. He's not pacey, but he just runs the wing really well. Like, he always, when I watched him play for Vic Metro, he was just always out there creating an option, whether he was used or not. And so, like, that's why I liked him as that late round wing option. If we maybe don't add another youngster there, if we go Jed Bustlinger early, go some other positions, he's literally just like, he will run that all day. And as I said, he isn't blessed with pace. He isn't physical. But if you want a simple winger that won't break the bank as far as draft picks, there's your guy. He was the best one for Vic Metro throughout the whole under-18 championships. Uses the ball well. I like it. Lockie O'Brien replacement. There you go.
Straight up winger. There's just no other way to put it.
That's it. It's simple stuff.
I love it.
Simple stuff.
Well, mate, is that all the names you've got for me?
Well, look, I've got a little bit more. Not necessarily this, and I know I'm just going to keep rattling off guys, but probably one thing that we've spoken about a little bit, and sorry to hijack your hosting role here.
No, this is what I need.
But it was talking about the potential whispers of us trading up. And I'll try to be quick with this because I know we're going a little bit late into this.
No.
But the big talk is that we want a pick past our first round before our second round. So I've tried to take a bit of a look at who that could be, like what picks we could get. Is it possible? Those picks that make sense at the moment, there's really two teams I see it being possible with. One is Sydney, who have 14 and 17. Do they want to use both of them? Probably, but there's a chance that they maybe only want one.
Yep.
Then you've got GWS, who have 15, 18, and 19. And they've got that earlier pick as well. So they're the one that, for me, seems super likely in. It would be smart if I was the list manager to trade either 18 or 19 for a future first rounder and load up your picks throughout the future drafts. And whether you throw in some late draft pick swaps, who cares? I think our future first for 18 or 19, because we're going to win the flag.
I was just going to say, makes perfect sense. 18 for 18.
And then I had to do it. I had to talk about players that could be in this range if it happens, because I'd be kicking myself.
Brilliant.
If we didn't go into it, because you hear these murmurs about us wanting to trade back into the first round or sort of into that 15 to 25 range. And you're going, well, who is there that we're that excited about? So I've picked a couple of names that I think make sense. So let me find my cursor. Let's go.
And mate, you didn't hijack anything, because this was my next segment that I had planned. So, and this name is also about as exciting as this segment. So if this is who I think it is, unless there's many hot uns running around.
Well, he is the son of former Carlton footballer. You may remember this man. I believe it was Trent Houghton that played a couple of games for Carlton back in the early 2000s, which was the peak period for us growing up. This man was one of the high hopes that we had that maybe didn't take it, but I think his son can. It is Ollie Houghton. He's 182 centimeters. He's a mid forward from the Sandringham Dragons, which it's really them and Oakley that are having, like, I reckon, half this draft, to be honest. And we've talked about mid, half forwards. I feel like that's the word I've said so much. If you're doing a drinking game to it, you're plastered. But he is probably the best high half forward midfielder in this draft. He doesn't necessarily accumulate, but he makes the most out of his touches and impacts games. Always hits the ball with pace, speed away from the contest. Not a huge goal kicker, but when he's in space running forward, he always seems to nail them. He's got that dash across half forward towards goals. And he's just really clean with his disposal. He's shown throughout the year when he's pushed up and been given those midfield minutes that can influence the game and be really exciting. He was a little bit more of just that forward that does a little bit, but when exposed into that midfield later in the year, particularly for Vic Metro, people have been like, oh, who is this guy? And he's sort of risen up the draft boards. I was hoping he was going to be perfect for our second round pick, but he definitely won't be available there. Like Sydney, GWS, probably eyeing him with those picks. And yeah, like he isn't the best contested player or the best small forward, general forward, but it's his ability to push up and be that influence, impact per disposal player, which suits our needs perfectly. And he's the best one in the draft at that.
Stop it. That yeah, look, I mean, not a classic father-son, but I'm taking it. That's a father-son, and that's always going to get me excited. So that makes me even more ready for a pick swap.
There's blue in his blood, so get him over to the baggers. Another
Love
one
it.
here suits a need. It is Braden George, 186 centimeters, more of that general forward from the Murray Bush Rangers.
Yep.
He is, I've said bests, he's the best general forward in this draft. If we're looking for that missing link in the forward line, the mid-sized goal kicker, forget Harry Cole. This is definitely the man. It's Braden George. 185 centimeters. He has that explosive burst to sort of push off his opponents and work himself into space or off the lead. Like he's so good at that quick, short bursts. And all the while, he's got the clean hands and ability to mark over the head. He partnered with that strong leap. He's got athleticism everywhere. He's oozing it. And he's reliable in front of goal as well. He ended up with 19 goals in 8 games. He had 2 3-goal games, 1 5-goal game, and a 6-goal game. Like he has that ability to just explode and be that match winner. Real sharpshooter who would fit into our forward line well. Downside. This guy would probably be a top 10 pick if he played all his games this season. But he's been a bit unlucky. We'll speak about injuries, but I feel like this is more luck than anything else, or bad luck. Injured both knees at different stages this year. Tore his meniscus early-ish into the season, missed 10 weeks, had some surgery, comes back, plays 2 games. I think one of those was the 5 or 6 goal game, and then does his other knee, does his ACL. Just so unlucky. And that's pushed him further back because we haven't seen him probably enough, but what we've seen has been unbelievable at times, and would have loved to have been able to see a bit more of him in the midfield, see if he can be that guy who, because he uses it so well and he's got that little quick burst, whether he can translate that into midfield. Just didn't see it because of the injuries. So he's someone that will float a little bit further back, because I feel like teams maybe don't always look for that just marking middle-sized forward, but match winner all about him. He could have that potential to do some crazy things because he can kick those 6 goals a game.
Great. Gosh, you've worked on these pitches well, mate. There hasn't been a guy that you've talked about that hasn't got me excited. So Braden, I'll take him as well.
That's the aim. And it's a lot easier with these guys that might go a bit higher. Honestly, that first 2 rounds is where I'm excited by a lot. But we know not all of them come on, and there's going to be reasons for that. But if you're looking for the positives, that's what I'm here to try to bring in. There's 2 more players I'll mention, and I'll go through them nice and quickly. The next one is one of my favorites. Maybe it doesn't suit a need, but I just need to talk about him. It is Lachlan Cowan. So you'll love getting a Lachlan across. I know we've already got a couple in the team. 187 centimeters, a defender, but he can also play a bit of midfield, a bit of wing, to be honest, which is where maybe I'm shoehorning him in from the Tassie Devils, which you absolutely love to see.
Oh, we do love that.
I love him.
I need to love.
Last year, the player I probably fell in love with in the draft was Darcy Wilmot as a bit of a rebounding defender. And I feel like everyone's now fallen in love with him at Brisbane. This year, Lachlan Cowan. So my track record on that so far, small sample size, pretty good, I will say. Now, while we don't, as I mentioned, don't need that rebounding halfback, I just love this guy's skill set. And you could push him maybe more into a wing role, or potentially he could do a bit of both, play a bit of halfback, allow Doc to float into that midfield if needed. This guy, consistency is everything. Every single game I saw him play impressed me. I never saw him really do anything wrong. It was just constantly providing good stuff. He's super accurate, and he's got that long boot. Him and Jason Gilby, I mentioned, for the Allies, were kind of tandem running off that halfback and wing at times. But this guy was definitely that step above, particularly with that ball use. And he just loves to have the ball in hand, take the game on. He's quite attacking. But if you need him to defend, he's shown he can do that as well and be accountable, run back in that 2-way running. But also that other reason I love him is apparently just leadership. He's been captain of multiple teams.
Oh, yeah.
And it's those little things you hear. It's, again, not something I know heaps about. I'm not in the inside walls, but you talk about those little things that we're looking for, and it's the leadership. It's that wanting to drive for success.
Totally.
He ticks all those boxes. Like, he could be a future captain of a team because of everything that's spoken about his leadership. And I think that with his running, with his foot skills, even though he's probably more suited to a halfback, why not just bring in talent and go for it and see if he can play on that wing? Go for him.
Far out, mate. Far out. That has sold me as well. So I think you said that you've got another name
One
or
more.
two. So that's going to be
One more.
one more. I feel bad for this bloke because that was a pretty damn good sell. So good luck.
Yeah, it's hard when I fall in love with a guy like that, and then you come up. But nothing against him. It is Ed Allen, 194 centimeters. He's a tall utility. It's an interesting, very interesting player from Claremont. Draft range, honestly, this guy, this is dumb. 8 to 30. Could go as high as West Coast's pick 8. Could go later. Who actually knows? He's really interesting prospect. He's the bolter of the draft, if you want to use that term. 194 centimeters. He can play a lot of positions, and he's shown quite a lot, weirdly, on a wing, which he uses his pace, honestly, quite a lot to win a lot of the uncontested ball. And he's really good disposing, and you'll love this little fun fact. He can kick on either side of his foot. He is a dual-footed player. He's almost as good on his oppo as he is on his main, which is just, it's great to see. And he won the 20-meter sprint at the combine as well, which is quite impressive for a guy with his height, which is, again, he's got those athletic traits that these AFL clubs love, which is, again, why he fluctuates. And with his height, could he be swung back and be this intercepting or just rebounding defender? Potentially. Could he just find himself being a winger, big-bodied midfielder? Who knows? Like, this guy could be anything, and we probably haven't seen enough of him in one spot because he struggled a little bit with opportunities early, wasn't really getting selected, and then burst on late, and everyone went, holy shit, you idiots, why weren't we seeing this guy all year? And yeah, I think West Coast are very heavy into him. They've got a couple of picks, 8, and I think one in the 20s, so he could go anywhere there, but one of those exciting talents that if you want to trade up and just get prospect that could be any position, anything, he's an exciting one. But yeah, he's just so unknown quantity, but there's upside for sure.
And you like him so much that you've cropped in our Clash logo from 11 years ago or whatever it was. The beautiful gold.
The yellow live strong. Gee, that's aged well, big Lance Armstrong. Get that sponsorship deal going. If I'm correct, did we beat Freo wearing that one?
See, I think you're right. That's a memory ingrained in me.
Oh, but yes, it's
fact checking.
Fact check for me, but it is nice to see some clubs around Australia just steal our logo and keep that on their lovely jumpers.
Yeah, well, it was a big winner, so I don't blame them. But yeah, no, you didn't do Ed any disservice there, mate. That was a very good wrap.
Perfect.
Yeah, gee whiz. Wasn't that just a beautiful jersey? I'm just looking at them now. We got one with
bring back the gold
with Cade wearing it. Oh boy,
what a time to be alive.
One era.
But yeah, mate, look, that's all of them. I mean, as I said, I followed this whole thing. I have rankings all the way to 70. So I could spend the next 6 hours going through every single player in this draft, telling you the ups and downs. But I've tried to condense it into an hour and a half-ish of enough players that I feel fit us or guys that I just like around our picks. But, I mean, let me know.
Yep.
I feel like I haven't thrown this out to you guys enough because I know a bunch of you guys will be following the draft. Let me know in the comments who you like for these picks. If you like any of the guys I've spoken about, go and watch some of their footage. Let me know who you want us to select because the draft is always fun because unlike necessarily the trade where you kind of know the player you're going to get, it's a surprise, the draft. You never know if you're going to find the next hidden gem. And I just love looking at the next generation coming through. Who is the next superstar?
Love it. Love it. The comments are open, and I'm going to volunteer your DMs as open as well. That if people
100%.
want to give you a hot take, then to do it. So great job, mate. We have run long, but I had one more question that I had pegged down because not necessarily Carlton related. Maybe it is, but I want to get your take so that we can clip this in, what'll it be, about 10 months when the rising star is named. Is there a guy? Well, there must be a guy. But who would you be putting your name to as the rising star winner for next year out of this crop?
It's so hard to go past Ashcroft. Very generic answer, because just throughout the season, he's been so far and away the best. Like, the only thing that gets is the knock is his two-way running necessarily. But it's mate, when you're winning that much ball and doing everything your team needs, someone else can do the chasing and tackling. He's just so silky. He's got the burst. He uses it well. He's got that Sam Walsh, literally will end up being every single place at all times across the field. You're like, you were just there. How have you won the ball? He's a genuine superstar. Yeah. If I'm going to put a couple of smokies out there.
You must have a value pick for us.
I say value, but he's my second rated player, and it's Harry Sheezel, who is he's... I love this guy. He's honestly perfect for us. I think I might have lied, to be honest. I said Braden George is the best medium-sized forward. Harry Sheezel's the best medium-sized forward. I've completely forgotten about him. He is just goal-kicking machine, something out of nothing, but has started to kind of go into the midfield a little bit throughout the season and show he can do a bit there. Be that higher forward, be whatever. Harry Sheezel is superstar. Literally, you talk about your Toby Greens and those match-winning, smallish, mid-sized forwards that can do it all. That's him. And if he's able to hit the ground running early, Harry Sheezel, he's just the human highlight reel is what Sheezel is. Fantastic.
I'll be jumping on the SB when the odds are out there. I doubt that they're out there yet. Would they be? No, once they're drafted.
Who knows?
And I'll go for Harry.
Go for
Feels
it,
weird hosting. Now it's my duty to wrap things up. Are you happy with where we've landed with that? You got anything else that you want to add as we prepare 1 week out?
No, look, I just got to say, mate, you've done an incredible job here. It's nice to be on the other end. You've nailed the hosting duties. It might be hard to get them back. I have liked sitting back and just answering the questions. I didn't have to prepare a run sheet. Just had to write a little bit on these draftees, which I absolutely loved. Lockie, you've nailed it.
Oh, stop. You're making me blush. And I mean, it is nice. It is nice being in that position, but also it's good to be able to throw you under the bus with some questions that you haven't prepared, that I hadn't prepared you for, which I'm normally the culprit of.
So I think with that, I'm going to throw you under the bus. I've said so many names. No. Out of everyone I've said, if you would like us to draft one player at any pick, who would it be out of all the ones that I've suggested?
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, I guess it's Ashcroft then. We're at 60? I think it's hard because I called it out because I said this was one of the guys that for some reason I just am seeing clips of him all the time. But if there was a way that Bailey Humphrey managed to get to us, with that first round pick, I think that would be pretty insane. He just, everything you covered. I think that would be a very exciting one. But I'm gonna stick with Oliver Hollands is going to be our man. You've spoken it into existence, so I'm going to back you up, and I'm going to say that Ollie's our guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely love it, and feel free to send us off now, Lockie. You've done a great job.
People, if you are still listening, you are our favorites. Please follow us at Navy Blue Corner, Instagram, Twitter. I made a TikTok this morning. We're going to be posting on there soon. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you all next time.